mating strategies is one of the cool features that make humans what they are.
Mating is inherently a competitive process in that desirable mates are in scarce supply relative to the numbers of people who want them. And so even post-mating, after mate selection, mate attraction, and mutual mate choice. But one of the unique aspects of humans is that we compete using language. And that is, we have reputations, and humans devote a lot of effort to maintaining the reputations, to building the reputations, to trying to recover reputations after a loss of reputation for various reasons. But we compete for mates using language, and that includes sending signals to the person that we're trying to attract using language. Verbal fluency, and obviously some more recent things like poetry, but also we use language to derogate our competitors. So the ways in which people impugn the status, character, and reputations of their rivals with the goal of making them less desirable to other people. And humans do that, and women and men both do that. So and so there's this big overlooked domain of women, the ways in which women compete with each other using language. And one of the things that astonished me is how observant women are about the subtle imperfections in their rivals and take pains to point them out. So, and originally it puzzles me why women would derogate other women on appearance. Well, they do it, of course, because men prioritize appearance. But I thought, well, the man can see the woman directly with his own eyes. Why would verbal input alter his perceptions of how attractive he was? And I think that part of it is, I think there are actually two quick answers to that. One is the attentional one. So our attentional field, when they draw attention to it, those what could be very small deviations from perfect symmetry or whatever they are become magnified in our attentional field. But the other is that who we have as a mate is also a reflection of our own status. Men more than women on average prioritize physical appearance, physical attractiveness, relative youth. Women on average prioritize resources, resource acquisition, qualities that lead to resource acquisition, like status, ambition, industriousness, and so forth. But there's overlap in the distribution. So some women place the total priority on how physically attractive the guy is, and some men view that as irrelevant.
What the heck's the purpose of status? Why does it matter if I'm the big boss?
Well, it matters because status influences your access to resources and your ability to influence other people within your group. And so this is part of the reason why women prioritize a man's social status, how he is viewed in the eyes of others, because high status men have access to more resources. That is, what are the things that lead to increases or decreases in status? And we did this in 14 different cultures. And we found some things that are universal, but also some things that are sex differentiated. So universal things like people value trustworthiness, they value intelligence, wisdom, knowledge. So it's even if you go across cultures, even to the small scale cultures that we alluded to earlier, there are these wise people, wise men, wise women in the culture who have people go to for advice, for wisdom. And so having a wide range of knowledge is a universal status criterion.
Presumably there's some value there in the mating selection aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not by chance that most of them are men. And this is going to sound strange and hopefully not offensive to people, but if you ask the question, why is it the case that men are in positions of power so much more so than women? Well, in part, it can be traced to women's mate preferences. So it's one of the sex differences that women have over evolutionary time preferred men who had power, status, resources, etc. And what that has done is it's created selection pressure on men to attach a high motivational priority to clawing their way up the status hierarchy. That what I just outlined is an essential part of the causal process, the coevolution of women's mate preferences with men's motivational priorities. My recommendation is to friends that I know is if you're really considering a good long-term commitment to this person, go on vacation with them. Ideally to a foreign country where both of you are unfamiliar.
Oh, I love it. Road trip or something like that.
Yeah. So where you experience unexpected things, stresses, you get a flat tire or whatever you encounter, and you see how the person deals with stress, and you see how you deal with each other under stress. And I think that's unless you have put stress tests on relationships, you really don't know where things stand.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to put it. I'm a huge fan of that, like road trip, and not just late in a relationship, like day one.
Yeah,
road trip, not day one, day negative one, before it even happens. And see, stress test, because it makes everybody better. It creates intimacy, or it creates or it destroys.
It's a feature, not a bug, in most cases. So in the sense that you have to have an adaptation that is sensitive to threats to a valued relationship. Okay, and I think I alluded to this earlier, that just because you're in a relationship and you're in a relationship with a desirable partner, it doesn't mean that you've finished solving the problems of mating that you need to solve, because there are threats from the outside. So mate poachers, people who try to lure your partner away for either a sexual encounter or a more committed romantic relationship. And then there's also dissatisfaction within the relationship. So your partner might become tempted to be sexually unfaithful or romantically unfaithful or emotionally unfaithful. And so we need humans, with the evolution of long-term pair bonding, we need adaptations to guard the relationship and be sensitive to threats to the relationship. And I think jealousy is one of those. I think it's a key one. And now I think that there are a variety of benefits to it, but also a variety of costs or downsides to jealousy, because we know that male sexual jealousy is the leading cause of spousal abuse and spousal violence, physical violence, probably emotional violence as well, or psychological violence. And so that's why I call it the dangerous passion. It's a necessary emotion, but it is also a dangerous emotion. So what jealousy does is it alerts you to a threat to the relationship, and it motivates checking out the source of the threat. How threatening is this? So people tend to increase vigilance of their partner in the modern world. It includes hacking into their cell phone or computer, monitoring them, sometimes stalking them, but also can include positive things. So
it motivates me to be better, I guess, on this 1 to 10 scale, to be higher. And you sort of kind of have to it's a nice feature that your mind sees others that you have affection towards as higher value, and it forces you to have that. Like I'm a person that experiences jealousy, and that forces me to be better.
Yeah.
I get my shit together.
Yeah. Well, and I think that the sometimes the best relationships are when both people feel lucky to be with the other person.
Yeah.
Sometimes people intentionally evoke jealousy in their partner. And I think that's also a kind of testing of a bond kind of issue.
Yeah.
So, and especially women, but I think both sexes interpret a total absence of jealousy as a sign that their partner is not sufficiently committed to them or sufficiently in love with them. While we're on this topic, there's a sex difference therein. Namely, if you contrast sexual jealousy with emotional jealousy, or sexual infidelity with emotional infidelity. And so we in one set of studies, I put my participants, or we used to call them subjects, into this, what I call the Sophie's choice of the jealousy dilemmas. Where I said, imagine your partner became interested in someone else, and you discover that they have had passionate sexual intercourse with this person, and they've gotten emotionally involved with them. They've fallen in love with them. Which aspect of the infidelity upsets you more? And and that's why I call it the Sophie's choice. Both terrible choices. Right?
Yeah.
But men much more likely to say the sexual infidelity is what upsets me more. Women, it's like, why even ask me? It's a no-brainer. 85% of the women say the emotional infidelity is what bothers me more. If you're having trouble attracting a mate, there are ways to improve your mate value, because a lot of things that women want in a mate are improvable. Women want guys who are compassionate, who are understanding, who are ambitious, who acquire resources, et cetera. Who are physically fit. There are things you can do to improve your mate value. And so I would say, rather than I would encourage incels or the incel communities, rather than being hostile toward women or being angry at women, just do things to improve your mate value, and then you will be more successful at attracting women.
Let me ask you about yourself, your own self, who mentioned Richard Wrangham. Think about mortality. Do you think about your own mortality? Are you afraid of death?
Yeah, interesting. I'm not afraid of death. I agree with Richard Wrangham. I'm not eager to leave the party. I don't want to leave the party soon. I enjoy life in all of its interesting complexities. I enjoy my scientific work. I enjoy my relationships with other people. I enjoy exploring the universe. So I'm not eager to leave, but I'm not afraid of it. And I think part of that is that I was married for a while, and my wife died prematurely of cancer. And so I spent basically 8 months with her, watching her die after she was diagnosed. And it was a horrible time for me and for her, obviously, but there's some way in which it kind of made it more familiar, so that it's became a lot less frightening, How
did that experience change you? Just as a scientist, as a thinker about humanity, as a human yourself?
Well,
so you're saying you felt like you felt a little bit more ready for this whole end of the party?
Well, yeah, because we tend to be afraid of things that we're not familiar with, and so if you're familiar with it, I know, at least in my case, that caused a lessening of fear on that dimension. But